Welcome to The Pew, the podcast about faith and church culture. My name is LaQuilia Graham. I'm your host. And we are now in our third installment of our series about heartbreak, grief, and loss. And I am excited. I'm a little tongue tied, but I am just so ultra excited because we are today going to talk about intimate heartbreak from a man's perspective, heartbreak and healing from a man's perspective. And we had an awesome time with Nicole D. Miller talking from the woman's perspective. And we're going to continue on this intimate heartbreak journey. And so I am so excited because our special guest today, I feel like he is the perfect person to not only talk about the man's perspective from a personal place, but also from that place of leadership, as we talked about with Rich Perez, the former pastor. And that was an awesome episode as well. So I'm not going to belabor anything. We have with us Bishop Demetrius Sinegal. Bishop, welcome to the Pew.
Thank you so much for having me on. Excited to be with you.
Yes, I'm so excited because it's going to be great. So I'm going to first start off. We're going to get to know who you are with your bio, and then we are going to get into your story and your journey. I can't wait. So here we go. Bishop Demetrius J. Sinegal, PhD, is a noted pastor and spiritual leader. His teachings often are said to affect a paradigm shift in the spirit and minds of those who hear him, leaving an indelible impression that provokes life transformations. He has earned a bachelor's of science in political science, a master's of arts in pastoral counseling, and finally earned a PhD in theology. In addition, he holds a postgraduate certificate in traumatic stress studies. He has been privileged to adjunct at several Bible colleges, seminaries, and universities. He is also the founder and executive director of Safe House Unmuzzled Advocacy Group, the nation's only advocacy agency for victims of gross clergy abuse and predatory clergy sexual misconduct within the African American Charismatic Church. For more than 29 years, Bishop Sinegal has dedicated his life to the work of Jesus Christ through his powerful ministry. He is a churchman and second generation Episcopate. Recognized by President Barack Obama as Bishop of the Year in 2011, his reach has transcended both social and religious boundaries. As an author, counselor, advisor, advocate, and successful businessman, he has been deliberate to take the demonstration of the kingdom into the world. So, without further ado, everybody, this is Bishop Sinegal. And again, welcome, Bishop.
Thank you. Thank you. One of the things that I absolutely hate about any speaking opportunity, whether it's podcast or church, I hate hearing my bio. Absolutely. When I'm sitting in a service, I'm like, okay, let's feed through this part. Let's go.
Right.
Thanks again for having me on.
You're welcome. And I understand. I don't like to not only hear or talk about myself, but
Right.
it is after people hear your story, and I wanted to lead with your bio and read all of what was there. I could have kind of maybe skipped things, but
Sure.
I think it is so important, number one, for us to hear about not only the achievements of men of color in the body of Christ, but also when people hear your story and your journey, it will make more sense
Sure.
because you're not just doing the work to do it just to make money or for a
Sure.
name. A lot of this has to do, especially your post graduate certificate, it has to do with what you've been through, right?
Definitely.
Yeah.
Definitely. Yeah, definitely. Everything that we experience in life creates an opportunity for us to become another type of vessel to pour into other people's lives, especially when we're able to properly organize and place those experiences and get some understanding to add to the experience so that when we do pour, we're not just pouring through the lens solely of subjectivism, but we have some objective understanding about how these experiences impact a person's sense of self, a person's worldview, and how to aid them in integrating that into their life.
Awesome. That's great. So I invited you because your intimate heartbreak, it includes what I consider, and I think you would too, a triple betrayal. And so we will get into your story, but I want to say I call it that because there was betrayal from a spouse, a close friend, as well as spiritual leaders who they did not necessarily emotionally or biblically assist you in your situation. So I want to start with the end of your book called Scarred But Healed.
Mhm.
I look like what I've been through. And we're going to start with the end because in chapter 7, called Show Back Up, which I
Yeah.
loved. Here is what you had to say, and I'm kind of going to paraphrase or kind of
Okay.
put some sentences together. You said, the demise of my marriage became a very public matter. Bloggers were manipulated and used to create a false narrative and to turn the conversation against me. I am still confused, though, as to how it was turned against me, seeing that I was the betrayed partner. However, that is the power of social media. When the news of the betrayal hit the internet, and literally hundreds of thousands of people had viewed the blogs, and lies about it, I was overcome with embarrassment, some sense of shame, and guilt that my house was now contributing to an already unfavorable narrative about the church and church leadership. I didn't answer phone calls. I didn't want to talk to anyone, and I didn't want to be seen. To show back up requires a deep understanding of shame's insidious nature. And the person who has been violated embraces vulnerability as a source of strength rather than weakness. And you have certainly shown back up. Let's
Yeah,
just,
you
you
know,
have shown back up.
that's through many dangers, toils, and snares, as the old saints would say. But indeed, you give power, and you re-empower the things that negatively impact you when you not only allow them to silence your voice permanently, but to internalize it, to let it create a narrative about who you are, how people must see you, and how people must experience you. It takes a great deal of resilience, a great deal of intentionality to experience deep betrayal, especially if deep betrayal becomes any type of public narrative and conversation. And then to make the intentional choice to show back up, and not just show back up, but to show back up in strength, to show back up in power, and to show back up without the shame, but with a measure of honor for self and the grace that God bestows to a person to be able to transcend those experiences. So yeah, we're showing back up, and we're gonna keep showing back up.
That's right. I know that's right. So I first was gonna start where you started in chapter 1, but I know that
Mhm.
sometimes people they get antsy, and I'm like, let's just go ahead and address the elephant in the room because
Yeah,
you know
yeah.
it's out there. In fact, when I googled you before, but when I googled you this time, it's like after your name, the word wife comes after, and so let's just go ahead and talk about it. And I want to say, first of all, you did a phenomenal job as a freelance editor. Who I work with people who are writing their nonfiction stories, and it's not easy to tell your story without sometimes maybe telling too much about another person or telling their side. And you did a phenomenal job.
Thank you. Thank
You're
you.
welcome. So in chapter 2, you began to share your story,
Mhm.
and I'll frame it like this because you really helped out, and you basically, the two of you, while dating and then in the engagement phase, you went through premarital counseling.
Mhm.
You had an average dating and engagement period, and you guys honeymooned in Dubai and South Africa over a 3-week period. And
Yeah.
I think to the average woman that sounds like a fairy tale.
Yeah.
However, at some point it wasn't. It was no longer a fairy tale, and you acknowledge the red flags that you ignored, while you also acknowledge your roots and contributions to the fractures in the marriage, not
Yeah.
the betrayal, but in the
Sure.
marriage. And so I want to start with pages 20 to 21. You say, my parents have been married for almost 50 years. I have never seen them have an argument. I used to think that that was an amazing thing. However, it also gave me a false expectation for what marriage was supposed to be like. Their marriage taught me not to have conflict, excuse me. It didn't teach me how to handle it.
Indeed, indeed. I come from the picturesque, quote unquote, family. My parents are pastors. My parents made the 25th, celebrated 50 years of marriage. And again, to this day, I've never seen my parents have an argument. To this day, I've never seen in any real heated exchanges between my parents. And that's something really that, especially that generation of the Black culture and Black community, was intentional about, keeping kids out of quote unquote grown folks conversation. And while indeed it does create a certain climate of quote unquote stability, it also serves to not prepare such a child for the real life experiences of marriage when it comes to having two worlds from two different perspectives. As in the case of my previous marriage, I come from two-parent household. My father was 25 years in the Air Force. My parents are saved. I have no indictment I could bring against my parents. I don't have parents that lived one thing in the church and another thing, at home. My dad is the kind of saved that if the show on TV cusses too much, to this day, change that channel. I remember maybe about 4 months ago, I was visiting and we went to a movie. And I guess the movie had too many cuss words. The bishop got up and went and walked out. I thought he was going to the bathroom. 30 minutes he hadn't come back. I texted him, "Where are you?" He says, "Son, I'm gonna sit out here. I'll be out here when you get done." So, just that environment that is really sanitized, and it created a model for me of not only for marriage, but a model of the way that I expected a wife to show up and expected a wife to engage with her husband, number one, and then her husband who is a man of God, her husband who is a pastor. And so where I come from a holiness church environment where the man of God is honored. And so my mother not only honored and honors my father as her husband, but as the man of God. And so there are certain ways that they just did not engage. And of course, I come into their marriage. I guess they had me. They were, I don't know, halfway through the course of marriage. And so they've had time. I don't know what the marital dynamic was before, they had me. I'm the last of four children. And so I'm coming in, that becomes the model. My ex-wife came from a completely different family dynamic. And so the social and interpersonal dynamics, the way communication was to work, or was expected to work, looked two completely different ways in both of our minds. However, for me, as again, I come from the stable family, right? There's some pride that is often woven into our confidence in our models, that we assume that the examples that we have had are the examples, and that it is the model. It's the way and the better way. And so that kind of pride, especially for men, especially for men in the church and men in leadership, comes along with us, and we're often unaware of how it is at work and how it journeys there. And so, yeah, started, from a good place, and those first couple of years were great challenges because, again, communication, we had two different examples of what that was supposed to look like. And at the time, though I had the academic training and understanding, in terms of application, my model, my experience was dominating over the information that I had in my head, and it created for a challenging first couple of years. That after those couple of years, we kind of came to I guess, a stable place, but it took some significant work. Took some significant work.
Right. And um I just want to say, especially for people listening, if you end up listening to the audio version, I my intention and my the way I wanted to go with the interview was to not, number one, you don't talk too much, but you do throw some bones. You do give us some insights, some insights into some specifics of what happened because like you said, people are nosy and they want to know. and you
Sure.
finally break your silence through this book. And so, but if people want to know, I really just encourage them to go and read it, because
Yeah.
we're not going to get too deep into that. But I will say this: you basically explain how in one moment you guys had finally, as a couple, really got into a really good space, a healthy space. And I feel
Hmm.
like that's very typical in a lot of situations where it's like the calm before the storm. You know, you feel like, man, you know, we're on the right track, things are going well. You know, in the past there have been issues, but we've been working through them. And in your mind, like, everything is good. You know, it could be better,
Right.
but it's certainly better than it had been. And then all of a sudden you find through, text messages and other ways that there was infidelity.
Right.
And
Right.
in trying to get that information and get that understanding, you not only had issues with the truth from, your spouse's perspective, but eventually with those who you trusted. And so before
Yeah.
we get into that, I'm sorry.
Yeah, one of the things that just in working with couples and working with marriages where there has been betrayals, one of the things that is common is staggered disclosure, right?
Mhm.
Where the
Okay.
betraying person, in order to protect their sense of self, their ideas about their goodness, what it means about them, while they're wrestling with, if I fully disclose, what type of person does this make me? How will I see me first before they even worried about how the spouse will see them? They're wrestling with their own senses of self. And so in order to kind of pace that and protect from having a crash and burn in an instant, it's piece by piece, little by little, not realizing that what happens with that is it continues to re-injure both the marriage and the betrayed person. That the betrayed person, every time they think, okay, we got everything, I'm clear on what's what, and we're gonna move forward, and then boom, here comes, well, there's this piece too, and then there's this piece too. And the more a person has to work to get all of the information, the more that trust mechanism is broken. Infidelity does not necessitate the end of a relationship. It does not necessitate, it doesn't have to be the end of a marriage, but where there is not an almost immediate commitment to endeavoring to repair and to atone for the breach of the trust, it becomes less and less likely that the marriage will either be able to survive or will be able to survive in a healthy way. God's desire for marriage is that each of those spouses be to the other spouse Earth's primary representation of his heart towards them. And one of the things that God never does with us in our relationship with him is to take our choice away. And whenever we're dealing with betrayal, the betraying partner's attempts to hold pieces of information is actually them taking that other partner's choice and showing the other partner that is the betrayed one. I breached your trust, but I don't trust you to make the best decision for you. So I'm going to give you the information that I think you should have, that I think you should handle, so that you don't make a decision that I'm not comfortable with. And so one of the things that we really gotta in our community gotta do better at is, when you get it wrong, people are flawed. One of the reasons I go through great length in the book to not paint my ex in any particular light is I understand and fully accept that human beings are flawed and human beings get it wrong. And what distinguishes one from another is not our ability to always walk perfectly, but our ability to perfectly respond to our imperfections. That when you get it wrong, you got to do it right. You got to handle that right.
That's excellent. And if there's anybody who, if you've heard already my interview with Nicole D. Miller, she shares a very similar sentiment of, people being people and, the complexities of that. To go back to this staggered disclosure, number
Hmm.
one, I'm learning that's something new for me today, learning what the
Hmm.
term is. But
Yeah.
Bishop, if I may, when you talk about our community, would you
Hmm.
say that an example of the staggered disclosure, because I believe I know what you mean, is,
Hmm.
for example, I recently came across an interview, and I won't say the minister's name, but an ex-pastor of an international ministry, and he was
Okay.
a major pastor in New York City. And
Hmm.
in 2020, there were, basically the news broke that he had been unfaithful in his marriage, but it came from the mouth of the woman he had an affair with.
Hmm.
Fast forward, I think this had been about just a few months ago. I think it was ABC News. They followed up with him again to see how things were
Hmm.
going. And then he disclosed that it wasn't just this woman, and it wasn't just a nanny that there had been speculation about, but there had been multiple of women. And so
Hmm.
in that case, he shared that, he did not disclose in the beginning, both to his spouse or to the public, about all of the varying, affairs that he had had. And I'm not sure if he explained the reasoning as you do, but would you say that that's a good example of staggered disclosure?
Definitely, definitely. Again, it's that person's attempt in their at the forefront of their mind, consciously they think or will self-justify to say, I'm not going to give all of this because I don't want to hurt them anymore, right? And so
Right.
there's a level of moral disengagement that happens where, in order to excuse or to again self-justify why I'm not going to give all of this, I need to kind of adjust my ideas of ethics and say it's okay to withhold information from them while they're in such a vulnerable place. But definitely, where it comes out piece by piece, and I can understand, right? I can
Right. Right.
understand,
Right.
but understandable doesn't mean acceptable.
Mm-hmm.
You can understand why staggering the disclosure may feel more comfortable for the person, that is in the seat of wrongdoing. But it definitely causes, again, the betrayed person or whatever the community is that's getting that information, makes them continue to have to relive that trauma. And what it does, it has an opposite effect. The person who's staggering the disclosure feels like it's going to lessen the impact. But what it does, it reinforces preoccupation, that the person who has to keep on getting, again, new information, it reinforces preoccupation and fixation with, all right, is this person telling me the truth now? Is this the end of it now? How many other details are it now, are in it or left unsaid now? But yeah, that's definitely staggered disclosure.
Well, I will say this, and we're going to move on. We are receiving a lot of staggered disclosures
Yeah,
in the Western church culture right now, and I that's another podcast for another time. But that's
yeah.
something for us to chew
Yeah,
on. We need to chew on that.
definitely.
Okay. So can I ask this, because you
Mhm.
don't address this in the book, and I don't know if it's because it
Okay.
just wasn't something that was of a lot of importance, but it sounded like to me that there wasn't a long period of time between um the marriage, the beginning of the marriage, and when you all, I think you said, you moved and started another, I don't want to say another ministry, but I think another location of your ministry.
Hmm.
Do you
Hmm.
think that that had an impact on kind of maybe the foundation? And I'm asking this question because we see this a lot in church culture, where a young couple, especially, they get married and then boom, they go into ministry right away. Was the
Hmm.
time frame pretty short, and do you think that played a part in some difficulties?
Um, it probably played a part in difficulties with her trying to find her sense of self. The
Okay.
dynamic in us getting married, I'm years into ministry, at the point that we get married. I'm visible in my church community, at the point that we get married. And here is somebody who she's served in her church, but behind the scenes, and now she's kind of thrusted into some of the limelight. One of the things that I attempted to not do and was really intentional about it was not creating some box that I needed her to fit in of what quote unquote first lady is. I need you to be this and do this and show up like this. And even though I didn't create that, there was still some internal boxes that she may have had based on what she saw, others
Right.
were doing. One of the things that is very dangerous for any couple is for one of the partners in the relationship to not have a strong sense of self-purpose. And how that then manifests is then that partner will make the other spouse the center of their world. And while that sounds very romantic and beautiful and amazing, that this person is your everything, it is incredibly dangerous, especially when that person does have a sense of not only your collective purpose together as a couple, but a sense of their own individual purpose. In every marriage, both persons have individual purpose, and then there is a collective purpose that God can bring out of the relationship. But the relationship is not the end of an individual's individual purpose. And so where someone hasn't yet come into that level of awareness or self-discovery, and then this other partner does, it will feel to that person like a level of rejection, right? Because you're not involving me or allowing me to be in that individual aspect of purpose. We did not have, at least in my perspective, not that I'm aware of anyway, we didn't have a lot of conflict around the church. We didn't have a lot of conflict around topics around the church. As it relates to ministry, the point of maybe contention that did manifest early on, of course, I'm an itinerant also. There are times that I may travel um uh 15 now, maybe 15 days a month. Back then, it might have been 18, 20 cities a month. And in the first year of our marriage, um she traveled everywhere with me,
Wow.
on purpose. We spent most of our time together. I was intentional about doing that. However, again, because I had years of experience in it, there were certain levels of sensitivity to the dynamics that I was aware of that she perhaps was not. And so where there was a lack of sensitivity to that, I adjusted those dynamics and said, listen, I can't have no arguments going on while the people of God are expecting me to be clear in ministering to them. I'm a
Right.
prophet and I got to preach. I can't have this stuff. And so when I made an adjustment with that and said, okay, I don't think you're going to come as often. And then at the same time, there was an economic crisis in America that churches were feeling, where churches economically could not afford multiple tickets, could not afford bringing in, I've got a team, I've got musicians, I've got whomever, and to bring in my spouse. And so all of those things just made it for me um, safer to say, hey, we just you not travel as often. And of course, that for her perpetuated a sense of feeling left out, a
Right.
sense of, again, he's got his own world going on that I'm not in.
Yes, exactly. And understandably so. Okay, so we're going to get into healing in just a few minutes, but before we get there, you blatantly call out toxic treatment and thinking within the church culture, and that came from the church culture into your situation. And
Mhm.
how those serve as barriers to recovery. So I definitely want to hit these, and I have three of
Mhm.
them. The
Okay.
first one comes from on page 15. You said, we have often heard preaching against emotions in an attempt to avoid being dominated by them. Allowing yourself to feel emotions authentically while maintaining a resilient stance against being dominated by their force is the way you should approach the life experience. And so you talk very transparently, as you shared earlier, about your inability sometimes to show emotion because of your background. So yeah, I just recently literally heard that this weekend, while someone was
Mm,
preaching. Get out your feelings.
yeah,
We hear it
yeah,
all the time.
absolutely. Absolutely. You know, it's I don't know, is that a church thing again? That's a black culture thing. And and we've learned that in our sojourn in this country, that black people are not permitted to have feelings and emotions. That our time spent through slavery and the way that black people have passed along that trauma and the response to the trauma, one of the primary responses to trauma is silence, right? And emotional suppression. And so that has been passed down through the genes and passed down through our experiences. And now we hyper spiritualize. I'm sorry, I'm at home and you hear my dog.
Oh,
Don't
you're
know.
fine. You're fine.
uh, we hyper spiritualize that. The reality is every single emotion that you have is an emotion that God gave you. God put within the human being the capacity to feel. And the intent and the purpose of all emotions and all feelings is to give voice to the immaterial part of the human part of our tripart being. That the soul that has no voice is only able to communicate with the body and then with the outside world through our emotions. And so there's no such thing as a negative emotion. There may be uncomfortable ones, i.e., anger, again, i.e., sadness, but even those emotions have a specific purpose to communicate a specific message. And when we try to make God the enemy of emotions, that God is in some way offended that you are feeling and that it is a communication of distrust to God and dishonor to God that you are quote unquote in your feelings. I mean, if we look through the scriptures, it seems like God was in his feelings quite a bit. God destroys the whole of the earth. The Bible says his anger was kindled against humanity, and he tells Noah, listen, you and your family get on the ark, and he destroys all of humanity. The scripture records it as in response to an emotion. Jesus has significant emotional expressions. And so emotions are innately a divine technology. God gave them to you, and they have a divine purpose. Where it becomes problematic is again where we do not learn the tools to manage those emotions and to interpret them. What are the messages? And deeper than the conscious messages, what are the meta messages? What's under that emotion? What more than what I'm feeling? What and why do I feel what I feel about that feeling? Why does that feeling invoke this perspective or this paradigm of thought about that feeling? How do I feel about the feeling? How do I feel about anger? How do I feel about joy? How do I feel about sadness? And so when we use the pulpit to preach against it, one of the things that for me and my personal experience, my approach to life in general, transparency is a major part of my personhood, a part of my ministry. If you follow me at all online, I'm going to be me 24/7. I do not feel the need to put some part of me in some secret chamber and keep quiet about stuff. One of the things in the aftermath of my own encounters with not only the personal part of the trauma, but then where the church and church leadership added to it, compounded it. One of the things when I just began to be a voice for other people, because my mindset is always, if I'm experiencing this and I'm who I am, whoever that is, to the church, then what must people with no voice, authority, influence, platform, what must be their experience in this environment that is supposed to represent God. And the way that it can, again, significantly impair a person's relationship with God, that, wait a minute, I got these feelings that I'm not asking for. I didn't ask for these emotions, right? Your emotions are not a choice. You don't choose to, we preach stuff. You want to be mad. Who wants to be mad? Right? Who wants to be sad? Who wakes
Sad.
up and says, I want to
Yes.
be sad today? You know,
Right.
but when we put that on that, and
Yes.
then now God is upset with me about feeling, it drives a wedge between the person and their relationship with God. That the person, whether they're able to language it or not, there's a distancing that starts to happen. There's a separating that starts to happen because, hey, I got these feelings. The preacher's telling me you don't want me to have them. So to keep you from being mad, let me stay over here with
Yep.
me and my stuff. And so I was and remain committed to, saying, hey, no, that's not the way that this works. Those emotions are safe, and we got to be intentional about creating a safe space in the church to express them.
Excellent. I'm just gonna say excellent so we can move on, but I could say a whole lot more.
Yeah.
So you you already addressed my number two. But I will just say that on page 34, you say our tendency as Black people and Christians is to downplay the impact of such betrayals, and it only contributes to people remaining emotionally and relationally unhealthy. And I feel like you
Yeah.
addressed it. So we can move on to number three, and number three does address number two. You explain about the blatant betrayal very
Mm-hmm.
deeply, and it shocked me, but it should not have.
Mm-hmm.
And this is
Mm-hmm.
on pages 27 and 28. You say, while fighting in, I put in parentheses for the marriage, I continue to experience multiple layers of betrayal, not just from my spouse, but from other so-called men of God who were supposed to be bringing accountability and balance to the situation. Bishops who attempted to hide from me that the betrayal continued even while we were supposed to be attempting reconciliation. Bishops who used their reputation in proximity to his, meaning the other person involved in the
Mm-hmm.
affair, to downplay the depth of sin and immorality at work in exchange for checks and perks. And I believe this is when we saw the very viral video of you having to just literally read a statement and say, I've tried doing things the biblical way and going to the person on my own and with other people. That's not working. I'm trying to save
Yeah.
my marriage and I can't because I'm still experiencing these fractures.
Yeah.
And so number
Yeah.
one, I'm very sorry to hear that, but however much or little you want to share about
Sure.
that experience.
Sure. Yeah, when I think about and matter of fact, I haven't even watched that video since I posted it. It's still up. When I think about and just can picture how I felt in the moment and the various things that I'm concerned with in the moment, I am there in that moment as a husband. I'm still trying to cover and protect,
Yep.
because if you go back and watch the video, I make no mention of the infidelity. I make no mention of any of that. What I say, is, hey, this person who I've used my influence to bestow some trust on, and that's what the concern was, hey, my influence has been leveraged to bestow trust. And if this is what I've experienced, then again, and I'm me. And one thing everybody knows about me is I don't throw rocks and hide my hand. If I
Right.
got something to say to you and
You
about
say
you,
it.
I'm gonna come for you and I will call your name out. Right. Um, and so I've got, as the husband, I'm trying to protect. As a leader, I'm now thinking about innocent people who again trust me and are now vulnerable because I placed trust in spaces and places. And then I'm committed to the word of God. The word gives us a pattern of Matthew chapter 18. Here's how you handle if there are breaches and offenses. You go to the person, right? And so I did that. Thank God. I don't know how much time we have today.
Oh, we have as
Thank,
much time. We have as much time
okay.
as you have.
Yeah, thank God, as I think even through that part of the journey, when I first again accepted what I had discovered, because that's a whole nother piece of the integration of betrayal trauma is acceptance. And any person that has experienced that type of betrayal will say that there are markers that you talk yourself out of along the journey. And then for me, prophetically, just the number of dreams and visions, and I'm saying, ain't no way, because several things. Number one, I had my spouse's integrity up here, that if somebody had to ask me back then, hey, if you had to say between you and your partner, who would ever breach the marriage? And I've never cheated ever in my life in a marriage or in a dating relationship. I hold myself to a high standard. I still would have said me, just because of the place that I had, that integrity at. And so
Mm.
I'm having these dreams, but I'm saying, no, she wouldn't do X, Y, and Z. I'm saying this person knows I don't play, and they wouldn't try me, And so then once I accept, I uh one day I said, you know what? These folk playing games. I'm getting ready to send somebody to meet Jesus. I call, true story. I call a couple of my guys. One who we did undergrad together, and he'll make somebody disappear behind me, and another one of my faithful spiritual sons. I said, hey, I'm not giving y'all no bunch of details, because again, I'm still trying to cover. I said, I just need to take y'all to
Mhm.
take a ride with me, and I'm telling y'all right now, the ride we're going to take may end in somebody no longer being with us. And I'm in the
Mhm.
car, and my spiritual father calls me and says, son, the Lord just dropped you in my spirit. And I honor my spiritual father and my father, both of them to the highest. My spiritual father said, the Lord just dropped you in my spirit, told me to call you. Where are you? I said, Bishop, I'm in the car on the way to a meeting. I'm going to tell the truth. I'm just telling you all the details. He said, what kind of meeting? I said, Bishop, I'm going to introduce somebody to the Lord. He says, he said, son, where are you? And so finally I tell him, and he was able to talk me, out of it. But when I thought about just the games that people in positions of power, who here I am as a, forget that the church leadership part, I'm a broken man and broken husband, at this point, who is still trying to protect the church, right? I don't want to add to this narrative online of the church always got this, preachers always got that. I don't want to add to that. So I'm still trying to protect the church, trying to protect my house, trying to salvage if the marriage can be salvaged. I got all of that going on. And you folks are playing games behind the scenes in order to, again, as I say in the book, to protect and obtain checks, to protect brands and baskets. And one of the things that is an unfortunate culture in the church, where it is presented in some hyper spiritual form and format, that a man of God is being spiritual. Galatians chapter number 6, ye that are spiritual, your brothers overtaken in the fault, you restore them in the spirit of meekness. All of that, those things are worn as coverings to stop you from being able to see the personal inurement and personal advantage that it provides to some of these bishops and some of these leaders, that if I will turn the narrative in this way, I now get this person more in my favor. They feel indebted to me, and that indebtedness comes with a check. That indebtedness comes with some benefit, and it happened, and it continues to happen. One of the reasons that the advocacy agency that I launched was when I came to terms with that reality, that these people in positions of power in the church
In the
are
church.
using this to play these kinds of games with people's lives. And again, I said, if they will play this with someone who is their peer and who has a voice and a platform, then certainly the person that they think is a nobody and can be swept off into the corner, what kind of game must they play with that? And so when we, as leaders, one of the things that um, was beneficial for me out of that experience, that made me a more compassionate and empathetic leader, that to know, because it's possible to live under an illusion that everybody experiences the safety that you are experiencing, right?
Correct.
And you
Yes.
separate it from the people honor you. You're a bishop, so you got a different type of safety. You don't put those pieces together until that safety is removed, and now you got to sit with the reality that, hey, if you're experiencing this, people with lesser influence are experiencing that and greater, and now it becomes your responsibility to use your voice to amplify those cries.
That's excellent. That's oh, I mean, for people, if you're again, if you end up listening to the audio version, and even for this video version, you're not gonna see me, but I've been a bobblehead the whole time because I am I am
Yeah.
shaking my head to all of this. And again, for the sake of time, I won't add to that. We can move on to, even though that's a perfect place to be, but we'll move on where we're going to get into your healing. And what really struck me, you said on page 34 of your book, you said, my biggest concern after my divorce. So you go from finding out about this betrayal, not knowing even the fullness of the betrayal, but finding out about
Mhm.
it, trying to salvage your marriage. You share in the book, so we won't go through that, about your decision to actually file for divorce and what that was
Mhm.
like. But you say, after the divorce, your biggest concern was, will I ever be able to love someone that deeply again? This
Mm.
concern came from the pain of unknotting the knot, in your terms, of basically what you say is the soul tie that forms from us loving someone so deeply. And anybody who has loved and has been in love, um, they can certainly feel this. And this just struck me so deeply. So can you just share, what that was like? And
Sure.
you talk about the soul, body, and mind, and the tripart, as you've already said, but unknotting the knot, it's so painful. It's so
Yeah,
painful.
absolutely. Divorce is a type of pain I would wish on nobody, especially a divorce that is shrouded in betrayal. And again, we often don't see it as so, but it is a trauma. It is a significant injury to the self. And so after, experiencing the wound, and again, just things that I don't even go into in the book, where you are forced to accept, hey, the person that I thought I knew does not exist, right? That this is a
Yeah,
stranger, and
yeah,
at this point in this stranger's journey, they do not hold you in this place in their mind and in their heart. So now you're still sitting in the relational vault that the heart has created. Science
right,
proves that when two people fall or are in love, or a relationship is created, one physiological unit is created, right? Where you're
right,
literally regulating heartbeats and literally co-regulating each other's blood pressure. A test was done with a person who was on a pulse oximeter to see what would happen with their heart rate when a person who they loved simply held their hand versus when a stranger held that person's hand, and how
right,
where the person who that person had relationship touched them, it regulated the body. And so if that's happening at the physical dimension, you've got to imagine what has happened deep within the soul, that you have created a future in mind with this person. You
right,
have shaped your present around this person. You have, if you have walked in integrity within your relationship, you have reserved certain emotions only for this person. You
Yes.
have committed to allowing this person to be your sole and primary source of certain feelings and certain emotions. And so now all of those things don't just dissipate because the relationship has dissipated. And so I remember as I'm going through therapy, and one of the questions I said to my therapist first, I said, all right, we've done all of this active work on the things that we know. Here's where we can see this has impacted me. Here's how we can see this has altered me. Here's how we can see what are the hidden things that will not come up, because there are some aspects of your healing journey that can't even begin until you are back in a similar dynamic. If you are
Wow.
wounded in a certain way in a relationship, part of the healing for that wound will only come in relationship, right?
Wow.
If it was suffered in this particular context, the restorative part, especially the apex of the restorative part, comes back in that context, that you learn that this person is safe. You may know a person, people can be safe intellectually. You may know that information, but
Right.
experientially, where the
Yes.
body and the heart experiences the person as safe and trusting. And so I asked her, like, yo, I'm really wondering if I have the ability to connect like that again, because men in particular, we don't open ourselves up in that way easily.
Right.
It does not happen easily. Me coming from a family where there was not a lot of emotional expression, a lot of emotional intelligence, not a lot of a validation for vulnerability. I come from a typical Black family. Shut up if I give you something to cry about. Hush up. Stop. Fix your face. All of
Right.
that stuff. So where there are expressions of vulnerability, you come from an environment where that's suppressed. You transcend that socialization into marriage, and now the marriage, right, wounds you. It is very plausible that a man finds himself unintentionally behind a gate, that, hey, I may hold your hand through the gate, but I'm going to stay behind the gate, which is why there has to
Mhm.
be intentional work done very early in the wounding process, that a
Mm.
lot of people tend to wait
Yes.
way down the line.
Yep.
Imagine if you break a bone and you don't go and get it properly set by a doctor and put in a cast, and you don't go and do that work early, and the bone starts by itself forging together. It may forge and it may
Right.
be functional, but its functionality will be dysfunctional because it is unable to heal wholly by itself. Successful integration of traumatic experiences requires processing, acknowledging, and accepting that the trauma has occurred, and accepting that it has impacted me in particular ways. And it is only through acceptance that you are able to transcend the otherwise dominating impact of the trauma that would try to create this version of you that never deeply, genuinely connects with and to other people. Acceptance is acceptance, not only that something happened, but acceptance of, here's how this has impacted me. One of the reasons that the book is subtitled I Look Like What I've Been Through is because, again, church folk, we are committed to not looking like, we shout over that. The preacher say, hey, y'all don't look like what I've been through. That's the goal, to not bear any of the markings or
Yep.
markers of your experience. And for me, if I endure something and I can't use it to provide life, strength, and a pathway to purpose for someone else, then the pain has been senseless. Jesus experiences a significant trauma at the end of his life. He's crucified. The
Mm.
Bible says
Wow.
he's buried, and when he resurrects with all power, even though he has all power, he still has the markings of his trauma. The nail prints are still there in his hand.
Yeah.
The hole is still there in his side. And it is those markings that make him able to reach somebody, Thomas, who was not there when the other disciples see the resurrected Christ and Jesus comes, and Thomas had told him, listen, if I don't see markings of his trauma, I ain't gonna believe it's him. Jesus
Mm.
shows up and says, hey, go
Wow.
ahead, put your hand in the holes in my hand. Put your hand in my side. Jesus was no longer bleeding, but he
Yes.
was not trying to hide the effect of what he had been through.
Yes, that's phenomenal. And you beat me to the punch. I was going to address how your subtitle, it's not just a subtitle, it's your mantra. And you
Yeah.
do in the end of your book, the last chapter, it's something that is you repeat. And I think you are doing your best to get readers to understand, and that's what we need to happen in the cultures, for people to understand, not to be ashamed of those scars, but in order for the wounds to go to scars, there has to be that process, and it has to be the
Yeah,
work. and
absolutely. And it's
and
got to
and
be
that
intentional. And men in
okay.
particular,
Yes.
um, we correlate doing that kind of work with acknowledging some sense of weakness, and being
Mm,
weak and being less of a man and not being strong. You're supposed to be able to bounce back from that stuff quick. That ain't supposed to hurt you like that. You a man. Listen to me. Strength and hardness are not the same thing. And a
mm,
person who experiences a significant breach but does no intentional work, they will become hardened. And when you become hardened, hard things are unable to be impacted, influenced, and affected. You can't then want to be in a relationship and also be a person that can't be influenced. One of the markers of the potential success of a relationship is influenceability. How much influence
mm.
can you accept from the other person? How much can that other person influence you, affect you, inform you, and you willingly accept it? Strength is not about hardness. If I were to take a towel, for instance, we would look at that towel and we would call the towel soft, and its texture is soft, it's pliable, it is able to accommodate whatever positions you put it in. But though the towel is soft, it is strong. If you pull on that towel and you turn and wring the towel and you yank on the towel, it doesn't easily break, because though it's soft, it is still strong. And one of the
Mm.
things that we've got to challenge ourselves as men to be is to push away from this need to come off as hard and commit yourself to being strong. And it takes strength to sit in your stuff,
Yes.
allow yourself to feel. A conversation I had with myself at the beginning of all of that is, you are going to feel this. You're not going to
Wow.
run from it. You are not going to preach over it. You are not going to get busy over it. I shut everything down and I made myself sit in those feelings and not try to bypass the process, because what you do not give yourself the permission to sit with, it will sit on you for the rest of your life. And it'll come out of you in involuntary ways. And you'll simply begin to call it your personality. That's just who I am. That's just how I am. And a lot of this personality stuff is really a deformation of who you were, because you didn't sit with your emotions, your feelings, and didn't do intentional work, not by yourself. Deep wounds don't heal by themselves, right? I remember as a
Right.
kid running through the backyard and I tripped over a bike, and the little thing that the chain is on the bike caught my leg, ripped a significant hole in my leg, and I'm gonna be, I'm a big boy. I had to be 9, 10. I'm strong. I'm crying. I'm saying, I'm gonna have to go to the doctor. It'll be okay. And my dad says, son, it's too deep.
Oh.
That's not going to heal by itself. And the deeper the wound, the more intentional you got to be about doing the work.
Mm-mm-mm. That's the truth. So we're gonna I want to segue into therapy, but and talk about the healing for the deep wound. But before
Mhm.
we get there, one of the things that I've been repeating to almost everybody that I know is when you share about forgiveness. This is something that is a paradigm shift for me. And so, first of all, you make it very clear where you stand in forgiving those who have hurt you, both in this betrayal, but in life in general. And
Mhm.
I want to say this is maybe around page 58. I'm sorry if I get that wrong,
Mhm.
but
Mhm.
you specifically explain the difference between therapeutic and biblical forgiveness. So help us out,
Yeah.
Bishop, because this is a paradigm shift.
Yeah, in the biblical worldview, normally how it's preached, let me say it that way. The way we preach the biblical worldview is that forgiveness and justice are two totally separate concepts. That forgiveness is to be the automatic response of any person that is born again and has the heart of Christ. Forgive whether they apologize or not. Because forgiveness is for you, it's not for them. And if you don't forgive them, and this is a true statement now, but here's the thing.
Right.
Truth has to be applied within context. Because if
Context.
you apply truth outside of context, truth can cause death and harm. In rat poisoning, only 3% of rat poisoning is poisonous. The other
Mm,
97% is not strychnine, it's actual food that is fine to eat. And so when we take truth and we put it, shroud it with this other stuff, it causes death. Jesus teaches us about forgiveness, and in Luke 17, he says, if somebody trespasses against you, the first thing Jesus says to do to the violated person, he does not say, get over it. He does not say, just pray about it. He does not say, leave it alone. Leave it alone. God can handle it better. He doesn't say that. What Jesus says is if the person trespasses against you, number one, rebuke them. The word rebuke in the Greek means to sharply confront or sharply correct. He
mm,
doesn't tell you to become passive. He doesn't tell you to become apathetic. Our whole ideas, even around the person of Jesus Christ, has been constructed for us through the lens and through the mind of people who stood to benefit from us having a perception of a passive, weak Jesus, who was not
mm,
that at all. Jesus says, number one, they trespass against you, rebuke them. And then he places a condition on the forgiveness. He says, and if they repent, he didn't say even if they apologize, because an apology and repentance are not the same. A person can apologize and not be repentant. And it is only godly sorrow, the scripture says, that leads to repentance. Many apologies are only the result of having been caught and wanting to guilt you into feeling obligated to release the person from any sense of accountability. So Jesus says if they trespass, rebuke them. If they repent, forgive them, right? So forgiveness comes with a condition. God himself places a condition on forgiveness. This whole
wow.
idea of unconditional forgiveness is garbage. It's nowhere in the corpus of scripture. God, let me tell you something. Don't repent and let's see if God forgives you.
Uh-oh.
Don't repent and let's see where you stand with God. Let's see if God says, I'm going to forgive you anyway, right? I'm going to give you without an apology. I'm going to forgive you no matter what you do because forgiveness is for me. No, if you don't repent, there are consequences for it. Now, when we deal with therapeutic forgiveness, we're talking about the resolving of the negative affect, negative emotions that are the result of negative experience or uncomfortable emotions that are the result of negative experiences. And so it is very possible to resolve the negative emotions, anger, bitterness, resentment, deep frustration, again, heavy sadness, depression. It is very possible to resolve all of those emotions and still hold a person accountable. When we listen to the way forgiveness is preached in the church, it cannot even carry all the way out. That if you truly forgave them, you don't even remember it because in order to forgive, you got to forget. It's foolishness. It's foolishness because forgetting is not a volitional. If you could forget, any person who has experienced any kind of trauma, if you could
Yeah,
forget it, you would. You don't want to
absolutely.
remember that. You don't want to remember being raped. You don't want to remember being rejected. You don't want to remember being betrayed. You're not choosing to remember it. And even where you are able to either suppress it or your mind, in order to protect you, represses it, the body the body keeps that information, and we call it triggers, right? Where you feel a
Right.
certain type of way all of a sudden. So you can resolve the negative or the uncomfortable emotions and still say, hey, you're accountable for this, right? We've been taught, somebody say, I'm sorry, you're supposed to say, okay.
Yeah.
No, right? I can
Yeah.
accept an acknowledgement of your wrong and still say to you, it's not okay. I'm not okay with what you did. And depending on the depth of it, hey, there is an impact that needs to be accommodated for. If somebody runs into my car and I get out and say, hey, it's okay, I forgive you. And after I say I forgive you, now your insurance, please.
Exactly.
Me asking for accountability is not a sign that I'm still bitter, I'm still mad, I'm angry. Me asking for accountability is a sign that no damage has been caused. I didn't cause the damage. You're going to take responsibility for that damage. And I think when we begin to create an environment for people to both have their feelings, resolve those feelings, and say where they feel is necessary, that a person can be held accountable, that's a safe space for there to be a balance of both mercy and justice. God's
Mhm.
forgiveness has woven into it both mercy and justice, and not just mercy for the wrongdoer, because that's often the only person we focus on giving mercy to. But it's not very merciful for the person who has been violated, that
Wow.
you, the preacher, the church, tells that person, you don't have a right to acknowledge your violation. Be
Wow.
quiet with that. Silence that. You bleeding, you leaking, right? You mad, you angry. It is counter the heart and nature of Christ to say that God is more concerned, and that's the message we tell a violated person when we tell them, hey, you don't get to have those experiences. You need to quickly restore the person who violated you. God
Right.
has always, if we look at what Jesus did, Jesus extended mercy first to the violated,
Mhm.
then to violators. And that must be the prioritization of restoration. That before I even consider having to restore someone who has caused the person harm, I need to consider restoring those who have been caused harm. So resolve the uncomfortable emotions. You need to do that. Your mental health depends on that. Your ability to transcend the experience depends on that. Don't go through your life holding on to the bitterness and the rage and the anger. And more often than not, people hold on to it because they feel like if I release this, then I also disqualify myself from getting any type of retribution, any type of atonement. Both are
Mm.
possible. I can both resolve the uncomfortable emotions and say, hey, there's still accountability that's owed. I ain't mad, but you do have some accountability. I ain't bitter, but you did cause some damage, and that damage requires this accountability.
Yes. Excellent. Excellent. And so let's talk therapy. And so you found yourself in what you called a free fall during the time of recovery. Well, actually, you say it like this, that you basically, it says, in this time I felt very vulnerable and unsafe. And at this point, I believe you had taken a 2 month sabbatical or about to take that sabbatical. I literally felt as though I was in danger, but I didn't understand why. The betrayal and events surrounding it felt very violent to me. I went on a hunt to understand what was going on with me beyond the obvious. And I found a woman on YouTube. And so then you go on to share how you found the woman who ended up being your therapist.
Mhm.
And this was fascinating to me.
Yeah, I you know, each person experiences trauma differently.
Correct.
And the way that trauma triggers the brain is different for every person, which is why we shouldn't measure how one person responds by the way that we've responded. Well, I went through this and I didn't do X, Y, and Z. I didn't respond. And I had people that tried to have those types of conversations with me, attempting to make themselves the example and model for my brain and how my brain was supposed to be processing. But it felt incredibly violent what I experienced. It made me feel incredibly exposed and vulnerable to the degree like I'm literally no these people trying to destroy me, these folk trying to take me up out of here, they trying to make me lose everything, right? Because again, in the moment I was getting ready to have a Pauline ministry. I was going to go do something and be locked up in jail. One thing that never crossed my mind was suicide. I had a preacher that called me and was like, Bishop, the Lord woke me up, told me you struggling with the spirit of suicide, not buying suicide. You will not kill yourself. You will not, you got purpose. He's doing all this just going in, talking about the Lord, put me on his heart. And I let him get it all out. And then when he got done, I said, listen to me. I said, now I'm in deep pain, but one thing I will never do is allow somebody else's foolishness to make me want to
Mm,
do myself some harm.
right.
Now I may want to do somebody else some harm, but I love me. Glory
Yeah.
to God. So I first found, again, there's a progression through the therapy because initially trying to reconcile the marriage. So we got those attempts at different counselors. I wanted counselors who did not know who I was, who was outside of our circle.
Right.
Then there was some personal counsel. One of the men of God that I am eternally indebted to, Apostle Ron Carpenter. I flew out. I had a pastor put me in touch with him, Apostle Carpenter, a few years before, maybe 10 or so years before, had experienced a similar breach where, and he and his wife publicly talk about it. His wife had been having chronic affairs, and he had gotten up in front of his church, said, listen, don't pray for reconciliation. This is done. This is over. And they end up reconciling. I got on a plane and I spoke to him briefly. He said, Bishop, just get to my city. He said, and we got everything from there. When I landed, I mean, you would have thought the Secret Service was in the airport. All these folk rushing me through the airport, takes me
Wow.
to gorgeous hotel, presidential suite. Again, I've never met the man a day in my life, hadn't had a conversation with him before. He clears 2 days on his schedule, sits and opens himself up to me and what he was experiencing. And for the first time in that journey, here's a person that understands what's going on internally. I don't want this to be going on in my mind and in my heart, but it's going
Right.
on, and was able to give language to it. I then went through several Christian therapists who were LPCs, and they were Christians, and they used a biblical framework as their approach. But I'm a very cognitive person. You can't hyper spiritualize natural stuff for me. I'm spiritual. As Paul said, I pray in tongues more than all of you. You ain't going to be, you ain't praying more than me. You ain't fasting more than me. But first the natural and then the spiritual. I went and sat with one therapist, and she was like, so tell me about your prayer life. I was like, okay. And she was like, okay, I want to give you some scriptures to read. I'm like, ma'am, I appreciate your attempts, but she said, so will I see you again next week? No, you will
Nope.
not. I went to another one, same thing. I was online and I did not have language for what was happening. And some kind of way I came on to a video with Kristen Snowden talking about betrayal trauma, talking about all of the things that I was presently experiencing, that sense of vulnerability, the great sense of threat, how my amygdala is activated. I'm in trauma response. I don't have a flight. My trauma response is to fight. And so I was always ready. I had protection dogs, highly trained level 3 executive protection dogs, guns, right? Because it's going down whenever it goes down. And she was able to give language to it. And so I reached out. And initially she said her client load was full. And she wasn't going to be able to, take me on. And so I watched a few more videos and I was like, no, this lady has the language for where I'm at, can help me understand this. And it was really, even that was a stretch for me because generally I don't encourage people to have therapists outside of their culture because there are cultural barriers, there are cultural lenses. We all bring our lens
Mm-hmm.
into whatever we do.
Right.
And so I'm like, this is a white woman. I
Yep.
didn't even know she was a
Yep.
Christian, right, at the
Right.
time. And but I
Mm-hmm.
said she has the language. I said I'm mature enough to be able to sort through the bones, and even after sitting with her virtually, of course, she tells me that she was a backslidden Christian, and I say to her in our first session, I was like, "Listen, I
Wow.
haven't eaten in I don't remember how many days, but it was a long time. I hadn't slept in over 30, literally no sleep in over 30 days."
Oh,
And she said, "Well, Bishop," she said, "you need to make an appointment with a psychiatrist, and so I'm gonna give you a referral. They need to get you some type of psychotropic or medicine to regulate your sleep and your eating." I said, "No, Kristen." I said, "I've given my body a certain amount of days." And I said, "At the end of that, my body's going to come subject to my spirit." And she
okay.
says, "Bishop, no disrespect. Your body don't know what the blank, 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 blank you talking about." She said, "You need to." So I went and sat with the psychiatrist. The psychiatrist prescribes the medicine. I say to the psychiatrist, "I will not be taking this medication." I said, "I'm a man of faith." I said, "In my body," and I'm not telling nobody not to take medicine. This is me,
Right.
right? This is
Right. Correct.
my journey. If you come in
Mm-hmm.
my house right now, my medicine cabinet has communion in it. That's medicine for me. Literally, the body and the blood of Jesus. And at the end, literally to the day that I said my body's gonna come subject to my spirit, I was able to fall into a deep sleep. And for the first time, I was able to eat. And that for her became a sign of the reality of Christ and the work of Christ, as she had had so many negative experiences with the church and with Christians. So
Mm-hmm.
it was really a life-giving to her. But we sat and worked and worked and worked, and she would challenge me. "Bishop," she says, "you're very emotionally intelligent." She said, "I can tell that you are suppressing right now." Because again, I'm strong. I'm the man of
Right.
God. I'm the man of faith and power. This ain't gonna kill me. I got all that church stuff going on. And she was like, "You need to give yourself the permission." She said, "Didn't you tell me that you told yourself you were going to feel this?" And I said, "You're absolutely right." And I sat there and gave myself the permission. I can count on one hand the number of people who have seen me cry. Kristen Snowden is one of the folks who have seen me cry. And even from that experience in therapy further empowered me to even bring people into my commitment to feeling and
Wow.
to feeling the spectrum of emotions. And so therapy was God's vehicle to bringing me to a place of stability in my healing journey. The altar was necessary. Prayer is good. It's not one or other, and it's not God and therapy. It is God through therapy. That there is safety in the multitude of counsel. And God uses these people's understanding of these frameworks and of the human body, the human brain, in order to aid you to get to that place of healing.
Well, I will say this much. There's a lot of other things I could say about that, but I in the first installment when we were talking with Rich Perez, he too talked briefly about his counseling journey and briefly hinted on receiving counsel from a non-Christian
Mhm.
professional. But I don't want to lose my thought. I was going to say oh, while reading your book, I said, let me go look up who this person is, because if he went and hunted her down as a PhD prophet bishop, I'm like, let me go
Yeah,
see who this is. And homegirl she's got
you
it.
got it.
Like
You got
she's
it.
top notch, no games, highly,
Absolutely.
highly certified, so many different
Absolutely.
certifications. And but let's briefly hit on this: barriers to counseling or therapy. So you did mention
Sure.
the fact that you reached out to someone who you at some point knew could speak to your condition and what you were going through, but you were first rejected. as
Mhm.
many really, if people know if there's a really good therapist, they're booked.
Right.
So there was
Right.
that barrier, but also the barriers of the belief or possible,
Sure.
beliefs of, she's not, she's not black, she
Right.
may not be a Christian. But I know that for men, there are additional barriers. Can you speak to some
Sure.
of those things?
Absolutely. Again, one of the primary barriers for men is going to be that internal conversation and our community's conversation about what it means to be a strong black man, and not giving yourself the permission in all of your strength and in all of your manhood to be a human. You are a man that is a human that has human fragilities and has a human body that has human experiences. And so that barrier of, again, what does it mean to you to be a strong black man? If your definition of that means to never need help, to never need support, to be self-sufficient, to be self-sustaining, all of those things that are woven not only into our ideas about what it means to be a man, but our ideas about masculinity. Those things will prevent you from moving into that space. There are, again, vain and ignorant biblical or misused biblical barriers, that Jesus is your counselor and he writes down all of your prescriptions. Amen.
In
Jesus
the room.
sure is, and give me all my medicine in the prayer room. Jesus sure is my counselor. And just like I speak as the voice of God, that therapist was
Mm,
Jesus's mouth to
mm,
move me through a healing journey. These ideas that we have in the church that therapy is the opposite of being in faith, and that needing those type of supports. We don't see therapy through the same lens that we see any other type of therapeutic support. You break your leg, you ain't just praying and fasting about that.
right.
You get in a car accident, the ambulance comes, you're not telling them, no, take me to the altar in prayer. You're going to pray on the way to the hospital.
Yeah.
And therapy, another conversation in the Black community. We often see therapy as just telling somebody our business. Therapy is not just talking to somebody. A therapist is going to provide a treatment plan to intentionally move you through various stages of the healing journey. So all of the internal conversations and community conversations present barriers that you will have to be intentional to say, hey, I'm no longer buying into that narrative. I'm going to allow myself to experience and reap the benefit of the therapeutic process.
Yes. And I want to add to that, before you got to um her, you mentioned that you started wherever you could. And I feel like a lot of times people use the fact that they have not yet found the perfect or the right counselor or
Right,
therapist also as a barrier. But for you, you were like, I'm just starting. If somebody gives me a referral, you at least tried it,
right.
and you kind of went through
Absolutely.
that process. Yeah, and I love that because sometimes that's what
Absolutely.
it takes.
Yeah, you
Okay,
got to
so
be
uh
healing can't be an option. And so that means if one don't work, you'll find another one. If
yes,
another one don't work, you find another one. Imagine if your child had received some terminal diagnosis, and you say, you know what, I'm not accepting it as the final report. You are going to do whatever you got to do to get to whatever doctor find, whatever specialist, whatever is needed to ensure that if it is possible to save this life, that life's going to be saved. And you got to be like that about you, your heart, and your mind.
that's right. And finally, we're coming to the close. So you already hit on one of these things, but as we segue from therapy and you saying it allowed you to open up yourself and to let other people in. We talked about this with Nicole D. Miller as well, but you explain in the book on page 58, but maybe some pages before, about supportive relationships and
Mhm.
the significance of how they help to dismantle, the bad experiences that you had. And you already hit on the situation with you grabbing somebody or some friends. You said,
Hmm.
I called one friend to take a ride with me to go pull up on one of the people who violated me. And
Hmm.
I was like, Bishop, the prophet? What?
The man of God was going to introduce. I was just going to introduce him to Jesus. That's it. Go meet
A
him.
little early. Oh
Go
my
meet him.
goodness. I was I was like, he is scrappy. I did not know that. So, but you but you do so beautifully share how you had people who simply would just who sat with you, you know,
Yeah,
in bad days where you didn't feel scrappy and you didn't feel like fighting, but you also were in despair, and how those types of relationships really helped to mend a lot of the brokenness as well.
definitely. One of the things you got to be intentional to do is to, as much as those persons that hurt you stand out in your mind, you got to be more intentional to draw your attention to those who stood for you and who stood
Mhm.
with you. I remember I was in Baltimore, Maryland, and one of my good friends, I had not told him what was happening. Stuff had started leaking online at that time. And he called me and was just like, "Where are you?" And I said, "I'm in Baltimore." Got on the plane. I look up, three of my closest friends are there. One of my friends in another situation, I was going to have a meeting in Shreveport. I called a friend and I was like, "Listen, I'm going to be in Shreveport by this time. If you're not there when I get there, I'm probably going to jail. Maybe. I don't
Oh,
know."
oh
And
wow.
this was like 2 o'clock in the morning. He said, "What's the Shreveport airport?" I told him the airport code. When I got there, because I was driving from Houston to Shreveport, I think that's like a 4 or 5 hour drive. When I got there, he was landing at the airport. God had people who were his extension of his heart and his protection of me in those spaces and in those moments. And it's so important to have friends that can create a safe space to allow you to process, but also to keep you from shipwrecking the rest of your destiny. That can say, "Hey, all of those feelings are real, and listen, I'm with you. And if you want to do that, then okay, we're gonna do that. But listen, we need to look at here's what the consequences are gonna be." And
Yeah.
those relationships became healing in and of themselves for me.
Wow. Well, thank God and thank you for your time. We can we'll leave out on you just sharing with us how people can find you and your work, but I want to leave with this. You know, I'm very grateful that you did the work, because in doing the work and sitting in the feelings and in the emotions, you were able to come out on the other side doing a lot of great work. So I know that you recently released your book Dear Singles, which is it
Hmm.
comes from the social media thread that was of the same name, as well as your Christian Mingles Live, which is how I even found out about the
Okay.
work you were doing.
Mhm.
And it's great. Anybody that, if you haven't, you need to check that out. But also, you quickly just talk about Safe House Advocacy Group, or how people can find out what you guys
Yeah.
do?
So safehouseunmuzzled.com. We advocate for victims and survivors of gross clergy abuse and predatory clergy sexual misconduct. Again, when I woke up to the reality that people in the church and all of their anointing and power are using their positions to muzzle and silence and intimidate people in the name of God. I called some leaders that I knew and said, "Hey, here's what God put in my spirit. I'd like you to be on the board." They shared in the conviction, and so we're committed to doing that work. Other communities have this type of advocacy, in particular Caucasian church communities. Even the Muslim community has an organization called Face Together that does a similar work, but in charismatic Pentecost abuses are so woven into the tapestry of our culture, we normalize it. And so we don't see it as an abuse. We see it as, well, nobody's perfect. And meanwhile, people's whole sense of self are being shipwrecked in the name of God and in a place that was supposed to be safe. And so that work is to be an extension of the heart of God towards those who are otherwise silenced, to aid in using our voice to amplify their voice.
Yes. All right. So tell us, where can people find you online,
Yes.
Bishop Cynical?
I'm at Bishop Sinegal on everything, on Instagram, on TikTok, on Facebook, on Threads, and anything else, any of these social media platforms. You can find us on there. Christians Mingle. It's on Instagram and YouTube, and anywhere books are sold, you can get some of our works. I think this book is number 28 for
Wow.
me. We've got a couple of others that we're going to be releasing this year. Really trying to be more intentional about bridging the gap between spirituality and our understanding of psychological processes and even therapy. We got to kind of normalize this stuff.
Yes, we got to bridge the gap. So,
Yeah.
well, the book is Scarred but Healed. I look like what I've been through. And even though you helped us to understand what that means, I will say to me, in certain ways, you don't, because I didn't even recognize who you were. When I watched the Christian Mingles, like I didn't know that you were
Yeah.
the man that I had seen in
Yeah.
2020 on that viral
Right.
video. I had no clue. I was like, oh my goodness. And it also looks like you've worked on your weight and you
Yeah.
just
Yeah.
you have a different countenance.
Yeah, absolutely. I was then in 2020. So I've probably been on I guess, a 7-year journey through weight loss, physical transformation. In total, I've lost 150 pounds naturally with
Wow.
diet and exercise. I'm in the gym getting ready to head to
Congratulations.
go work out with my trainer now. I'm in the
Okay.
gym. I hate working out, but I'm committed to the results. And
Right.
that's what true life transformation is about, is being committed even if not to the process. See the
Right.
process as a means to a different end, right? Rather than
Yes.
focusing
Yes.
on the frustration of the process, that end result. So no, physically, I don't look like it, but the way that I love, the way
Yeah.
that I feel, the way that I hear, the way that I know, and the way that I allow myself to be known looks like the life-giving aspect of what I've been through.
Yes. Well, excellent words. We'll end there. Dr. Bishop Demetrius J. Sinegal, thank you so much for your time. This has been a blessing. And to everybody else out there who are listening, until next time, God bless.
Thanks so much.